Hi, everyone, and welcome to Grid Chats, bite-sized conversations on the hottest issues shaping our energy future. I'm your host, Michael Wu, and today I'm joined by Brandi Colander. She's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Department of Interior and former Deputy General Counsel at the White House Council of Environmental Quality, as well as a sustainability leader in the corporate sector. She now serves as the CEO of the DC Green Bank, where she oversees investments in green infrastructure, clean energy, and sustainable community development across Washington, D.C. Brandi, welcome to Grid Chats.
Thank you for having me, Michael.
Brandi, for those of our audience who aren't, involved in the day-to-day of climate finance, can you just take a step back and explain to folks what a green bank is and how it works?
Absolutely. So, a green bank is basically the first stop in helping to make your dreams come true if you're looking to build resilient infrastructure, particularly in the District of Columbia. We like to think of ourselves as your one stop shop for technical assistance, for being able to figure out the financing to make sure that it actually pencils, and also being able to, when appropriate, launch pioneering technologies. All of the things that we invest in and commit our time and the team's energy to are projects that allow for us to build for the infrastructure of tomorrow. So if you think about any insurance claim that you may have experienced in time where, you're building back to the infrastructure of yesteryear. We're thinking ahead, and we're a mission based entity that really is focused on being able to build resilient infrastructure in partnership with people at various scales. And so all of our work has some consideration about resilience through the lens of climate, and we're really excited to continue leading this work.
Well, Brandi, that sounds like an incredibly important service that you're providing to many members of the community. Help me understand from the specifics of individual projects, what kinds of projects are you advancing? How do you work with those folks, your project partners directly? And what kind of projects wouldn't happen if the DC Green Bank wasn't around?
I think the first piece is to focus on scale. And we really are, I think, pretty unique in that we are willing to help a church that notices a boiler is super inefficient and wants to make that upgrade because it's becoming costly and they're thinking about their tomorrows, to the largest office conversion in downtown DC that ended up being a $500 million largest PACE deal in history as the city's PACE administrator. And so we are really committed to making sure that we can reach a broad spectrum of potential stakeholders and borrowers as partners. And we do that because we have different instruments to support different needs. So some of them are local federal grants, some of them are unrestricted dollars that we just decide this is a project that makes sense for us to invest in because it hits all of the core metrics. And we've found a partner that is, willing to work with us, and it has all of the appropriate processes in place to be able to scale their next big thing. I will say one of the things that is sort of special about working with us, I think, is our technical assistance. Sometimes that's in the form of feedback that's, you're not ready now, but let's partner with you to figure out what makes sense, right, over time. Some of that is, oh, we're the bridge financing gap that you've been looking for years, right? We wish you had talked to us first, right? So it just depends on where you are in your journey. We're not a conventional finance institution. We do not, you can't drop a deposit off with us. Also, that also means in practice is that we are really thinking about how to build a capital stack that mitigates risk and allows for new technologies, new projects to come to life. So what would happen, Michael, if there were no green banks? And I mean, there was a world not long ago where there were no green banks. So, I'm sensitive to that reality. Is that a lot fewer projects would be built because the risk aversion of conventional institutions is simply a different business model. The financing would be much more expensive because some of these technologies, we have a different position and a different way of thinking about the larger, bigger picture underwriting to support that longer term. The other reality is that because we are sort of the hub with lots of different spokes, we are very plugged into what's happening from a legislative, policy, financial, legal perspective. And so we're thinking about all of those things in tandem. And we have a broader ecosystem of similar entities across the country that are all thinking about how to make these investments work. Frankly, because we're managing externalities within cities and states that end up being the gap to support long-standing infrastructure being built with a return. So we are in a business. I want to be clear about that the goal is to be able to continue to scale these types of entities so that you've developed a cap stack that is self-sustaining and can continue to move that work forward.
Brandy, I just have to ask now, has anybody ever come to your office with a bunch of cash and asked to make a deposit?
Not since you did last week, but outside of that one
Okay,
example,
thank you. Yeah, good point. What you're providing sounds like it feels like such an important and critical gap. You mentioned sort of being locked into the policy and legislative movements. What are the barriers you face to really supercharging your own green bake? What would it take to really scale this model, both for you and around the country?
this is a space that I care deeply about. I've been involved with for a long time. When I was in graduate school at Yale, there was a professor who was helping stand up Connecticut's Green Bank. And so the concept made so much sense to me, largely because at the time I was studying how there were always these hybrid finance institutions in other countries that help support new innovation, knowing that in the beginning there's so much risk. And so a lot of what we're always trying to do when you're pioneering something new is mitigate risk so that it just has enough time to root, right? What we're doing here is the same thing, but at a different scale, right? I think what's special and unique about what we're able to do, and I'll give a concrete example of the Geneva project that's currently being built right along Connecticut Avenue in the District of Columbia, and it will be the largest office conversion. We used an instrument called PACE, which basically allows for us to help people take the friction out of the upfront costs of adding more climate and green attributes to large infrastructure. And in that specific example, we literally had to have legislation changed within 30 days to be able to get that deal to see um, the light of day. It is very rare to be able to move legislation that quickly on anything. It was the close of the year. It was for almost a $500 million project. But the purpose of me using this example is because that was a legislative cap that was really designed as a protection mechanism because at the time green banks were proofs of concept, right?
Mhm.
So once we were able to say, hey, we've been proving the concept has been proven, right? We're able to show you our self-sufficiency. We're able to show you that we can attract these types of things to the District of Columbia. And we want these projects here, right? Once we show that they can pencil, that is a perfect example of how partnering with us allowed for that to move forward.
Brandy, that's a wonderful example and really exciting project. For all the folks who would be interested in either engaging with you directly or just learning how they might be able to bring some of the lessons that you've gained to their own work, where can they learn more?
So start with our website. We would love to talk to you. I have a really fantastic team that allows for us to be able to do all of this work at scale. We have a team of folks that are basically part of our investment team. And these are the folks that become the deal leads, right? They're the folks that are initially going to sit down with you, talk through what it is that you're trying to grow and build. They're originating new deals for our pipeline. Once a deal has come to fruition and we've closed a project, then you're going to work with our accounting and finance team. Those are the folks that are going to make sure we're working in tandem as there are draws. When there's a hiccup, all of these are the things that are types of partnership that require a big investment to be able to see the finish line. We also have a team on the sort of the external affairs side, comms and others that think about strategic partnerships and how we can do things in the community that we care so much about. We're also just constantly getting inquiries and feedback from people that hear about our work because it is the nation's capital and we learn from each other. So I would say, please reach out with a question. You'll probably teach us something. And if there's anything we can share along the way, we would love to help support this work at scale.
Outstanding. Brandy, thanks so much for your service and thanks for joining Grid Chats.
Thank you for having me.